another angle to this is what the American people are thinking. So we do have some polling on that for you. Now, this is the percentage of Americans who think the charges in each indictment are serious. So as far as all Americans go, for all of the indictments, actually, it's all over 50%. Obviously stronger amongst Democrats, pretty strong amongst independents. But what you see there that's depressing is the amount of Republicans who think that the charges in each indictment are serious. Again, these are people who are deeply unserious and they are living in a deeply, like they're just rejecting the reality that is in front of them, and it's depressing. But you can see those numbers drop when it comes to actually charging him, especially with the Republicans here. Look how low the percentage of Republicans is that thinks that he should be charged. Roughly all Americans, about half, believe that he should be charged with the crime. Obviously, the strongest support is up there amongst the Democrats. But to see only 15% of Republicans, gosh, that's just depressing. I mean, the abundance of evidence against this man, and they think that he should be above the law. So half of Americans believe Trump should suspend his political campaign, yet the same number believe the charges are politically motivated. From ABC News, 50% say Trump should suspend his campaign, 33% say he should not, 17% are unsure. The numbers are virtually identical when asking whether or not the charges are politically motivated. 49% say yes, 35% say no, and 16% don't know. Now, one more aspect that we've talked about, maybe just in passing, but we want to focus on here briefly from CBS News. The formal arraignment expected in September will be the fourth for Trump, the only president who has ever been criminally charged. The Georgia arraignment, however, is expected to be slightly different than the others because cameras are allowed in the state's courtroom. That's one of the reasons that we see that a lot of these co-conspirators are trying to have their cases removed. Not just for this reason, but also because they're more likely to have favorable Republican appointed judges in federal court. But that is a driving force for so many of them. They don't want their trials to be televised. Now, Georgia law states that photographs and televising of the courtroom is allowed as long as it's not disrupting the proceedings. Now from NBC News, in 2018, the Georgia Supreme Court, in an order amending the law to include smartphones, underscored the importance of transparency. Open courtrooms are an indispensable element of an effective and respected judicial system. It is the policy of Georgia's court to promote access and to understanding of court proceedings, not only by the participants in them, but also by the general public and by news media who will report on the proceedings to the public. Now, a couple things we've discussed here, but I mean, Jackson, I want to ask you about the televised proceedings of these trials. Do you think that this would be largely positive, that the people get to see, our former elected official answer for the crimes that he's committed, or do you think that could possibly be used to galvanize his supporters to do more violence?
I mean, honestly, I think at this point, it's just another day of Trump on television and Trump being discussed. Like we live in an environment where we're constantly bombarded with everything media related anyway, and Trump is about 65% of everything that we see. So I personally, I don't think that this is really gonna shake anything up any more than it would if it wasn't on television, because as we just went over, you got people doxing their political enemies on social media as it is. But the craziest thing to me, a few things. Now, I'll concede that it's still possible that Trump can win a general election, but with this trend and over a year left before Election Tuesday, I just don't think it's plausible for him to undoubtedly get in more and more trouble. For the American people who already rejected him in 2020 and 2022 to be like, you know what? Forget about 2028 in the future. Let's try this guy out again. I just don't see that happening. It could, but come on, man. And speaking of command, that's basically Donald Trump's whole defense now. It's just like, come on. Like it was endless goalpost moving. This doesn't matter, that doesn't matter. Everything's fake. 91 charges, all of them are fake because Donald Trump is this transformative figure who just fights so hard for the people, and he gives his all. He leaves it all out on the court when he's done. And it's like this dude didn't do anything but cut taxes for corporate America. And then they talk about COVID and all the shutdowns as with he wasn't the president of the United States when COVID was at its worst. Somehow Republicans always forget that. And again, now it's like just, come on, does this really matter? Come on. That's all they got left. So really it begs the question, like, what in the hell is the Republican Party gonna do after 2024 when Donald Trump almost certainly loses a general election? That, I mean, clearly they're gonna be whining and crying about it forever, but what are they really gonna do? What direction are they gonna head? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anybody does, but I think it should be a concern.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.